Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي اشدد به أزري وأشركه في أمري كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم ارنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today is our 25th session, inshallah, on the topic of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, or in the name of the merciful, the compassionate. Today we'll begin from reading the sixth mystery. This is the last of the 6 mysteries in this chapter. And what I decided was that, inshallah, as we read the first large paragraph, it will help us summarize the points discussed in the first, in the previous mysteries that we read, and they do so in a methodical fashion that will help us both remind ourselves of the discussion that has come up so far, but at the same time add dimensions to it that it sort of arise from understanding this altogether. But in brief, for anyone who may be joining in this session recently or is new, we've been studying, discussing, expounding on the sentence that says, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, from a point of view that allows us to connect it practically in our lives. And what that means is understanding or engaging with this statement that, and using the statement in order to unlock and open up what, open up what it is sort of intended to for our life, or for existence in and of itself. What is the mindset that we should have in order for this sentence to actually have significance in our being, in our actions, in our outlook, or our understanding of our existence. So inshallah, with this brief sort of intro, I will start reading the 6th mystery, and as we read through, as I said, it will provide us an opportunity to summarize points discussed from the previous discussions. So, Bismillah. O unhappy man, afflicted by a boundless impotence and endless wants, see from the following how valuable and acceptable an intercessor is divine mercy. For it is a way to know the all-glorious sovereign in whose army both the stars and minute particles serve together in perfect order and obedience. The glorious monarch of pre-eternity and post-eternity, who is self-sufficient and utterly without need. He is rich, without limit, and in no way in need of the universe and its beings, The whole cosmos is under his command and direction, utterly obedient beneath his majesty and grandeur, submissive before his sublimity. That is divine mercy for you, O man. It raises you to the presence of the one who lacks all need, the eternal sovereign, and makes you his friend, addressee, and well-loved servant. But just as you cannot reach the sun and are far from it, although it fills your mirror with its light, reflection and manifestation, and you can in no way draw near to it, in the same way, you are infinitely distant from the most pure and holy one, the Son of pre-eternity and post-eternity, and cannot draw near to him. But the light of his mercy brings him nearer to us. Okay. So I'll begin with, discussing terms that, will highlight the main points that I feel were discussed in the, since the beginning of these discussions. As always, feel free to raise your hand at any time with questions, comments, thoughts, anything. The floor is open and welcome to everybody and encouraged. And please feel free to interrupt me because I will try to go through this paragraph in as much detail as I can, but inshallah, I will look forward to your help and support in understanding this. So in the first sentence, very clearly, our attention is caught by the phrases of, unhappy man and one that is afflicted, suggesting someone that is suffering and is in pain by the realization of the fact that he has boundless, endless wants and his equally endless impotence or his inability to address them. So if you do try to imagine this scenario, in it, obviously there's no need to imagine it when it is sort of our reality, in fact, where if one really does spend some time thinking in any moment, they do realize that in any given moment, there is something that they feel they require, whether it is some sort of satisfaction in that moment, whether it is some sort of calm in that moment, some peace in a moment, whatever that might be, it is constantly and always with us in any given moment with us. And that is on an existential level, and we are very well aware of our conditions on our social level of what we require. And this sort of realization that there is a constant feeling of need, and at the same time, there is, no matter, or as we continue to, in our own ways, make the effort to satisfy this need, we always realize that, I satisfied my need for whatever that might be in that moment, and it arises in the next moment. I satisfy it for the day, it arises the next day. And so this sort of contradiction that one finds in their life, that nothing really seems to satisfy them for a period long enough for them to be satisfied with it, presents, to me, a sort of torture, where there is no end to one's needs, and there's no end to trying to satisfy it within our worldly conditions. And this torture, admittedly leaves this individual or the condition of man as unhappy. And this is perhaps the starting point, or was the starting point in the way that we've been discussing this topic, is that nothing in our existence seems to satisfy one's need for, as long as one wants it to do so. And so this realization becoming the starting point also becomes a man's identity. And we also talked about, an important point that will, inshallah be expounded on further, is that when it comes to man's nature of being a conscious human being, one that has been endowed and honored with capabilities such as emotions and reason and the ability to question and discover things and sort of go on a journey of trying to find what things mean, why they're there, how they're there. When one sort of discovers or understands, realizes this part of himself, he realizes that also his greatest need then becomes to want to know what is the answer to his existential questions. Why does something exist? How does it exist? And what does it have to do with satisfying this sort of endless need I find myself with? And so at this point, this becomes or should become man's identity or define man's identity. So in our daily life, we encounter this situation quite a lot where, you meet somebody and they ask you, what do you do? Or, how you spend your time, I guess. But mostly, what do you do? And let's say, I'll give an example. Let's say you're a student and you say, well, I'm a student. Then that becomes, the way that this individual or society starts to look at you and starts to, in other words, serve you. Let's say as a student, you get student discount at places for books, for other things. You go to a shop and knowing that you're a student, you're given that discount. So things start to your life or things, your society all starts to tailor you based on this identity that you have expressed and have accepted for yourself and the one that you prefer to be known by. Similarly, if an individual, if a human being recognizes his identity, accepts his identity, and sort of displays his identity as one of being in constant faced with constant, endless desire for his life to mean something and not just mean something, simple, but something that has a meaning that sort of also amazes him. He's in awe of it. So nobody just wants, a simple sort of, even in our, let's say, life experiences, if, let's say, if someone's birthday or some occasion, generally speaking, people want it to be very special, and it's just not about having let's say, a birthday, but it's also wanting to have something special and meaningful attached to it that is more memorable than all other days. And so for man too, the meaning of life just can't just be something that does not amaze or wows a human being, but something that, he finds himself sort of in wonderment of, and sort of in completely sort of overwhelmed by this meaning. And if then he goes on to say, okay, the one, and goes on to conclude the fact that if this is my identity that I must assume in order for me to get what I need, this is the identity that is going to lead me to get what I need, then that is, what sort of opens the way, or opens a door or an opportunity for then to start investigating and finding, this intercessor that is defined as divine mercy. But I think as this paragraph, as we go on discussing the whole thing, I think helps give a more comprehensive definition of divine mercy and opens this topic up, which we shall do. But very briefly, the topic of intercessor is something we've discussed in good length, and inshallah, it's again open for sort of revisions of this definition. But very simply put, an intercessor is that gives you access, or that allows you to get what you need or what you want. And we will definitely need to expound on this, exactly what it means that divine mercy is an intercessor. So moving on further, so actually one point that comes up, and it will be again repeated again, but in this endless wants and this boundless sort of despair, if you will, if you imagine, let's say, this is just a obviously hypothetical example, but the nature of our needs is infinite. But let's say even if there are 1,000 needs that one can list, hypothetically speaking, then it would mean that potentially this individual would need to find 1,000 possible solutions. Even, and 1,000 is a conservative figure. Even thinking about 1,000 different solutions, at the most, sounds like, again, adding to one's torture of having these needs and trying to find it. It does not sound like a simple solution. There is no ease in this. It is, even more agony and anguish in trying to satisfy these needs individually with 1,000 different sort of solutions. And so there's no satisfaction in this concept. So then when the paragraph goes on, for it is a way to know the glorious sovereign. So now we should be sort of all in this mindset of, realizing ourselves as bundles of infinite need and wants, and no possible solution to it. That leads us to then say, okay, whatever the source of these, if I have an infinite, let's say, needs, if someone does admit to this, if I have infinite needs, then I need a solution that has an infinite nature to it, for it to possibly satisfy it without doubt, without any further sort of complication in this fact. And I understand that, the concept of divine mercy, like when I think about this example of the stars and the minute particles, and it does represent to me mercy in the fact that, I can, or any individual can look at something as a grain or a particle of dust and look at something as big as a star, as a sun, and know and realize that, okay, the one that must have the agency, the power to bring a particle of dust into existence, must also be able to bring something such as a star into existence, because the power to bring something into existence, whether it's a particle or a star, is the same. And if one thinks about it in terms of their problems or their needs and their wants, from your most minute need to your biggest need, that this source of existence must have the power to address my most minute need and my largest need. Just think about how simple and straightforward this solution is, concluding that there is one solution to all my needs, to infinite needs, as opposed to thinking about your infinite needs and needing, a number of different solutions or things that may satisfy it. So I see the concept of divine mercy in this fact that I can connect anything, any sort of thing of any sort of gravity to it, to one single source. And that makes life so simple and straightforward and without sort of confusion and complications. And this too is a manifestation of divine mercy, that you can at any given moment be able to attach to a source that answers or provides an answer for everything that must be divine mercy for us, or for this sort of individual. But the concept of stars and minute particles also gives rise to the concept that we discussed in one of the mysteries discussed earlier. Perhaps it was the second mystery, I'm not sure, but the concept of divine unity and divine oneness being contained or manifested within divine unity. The fact that, very simple example, the fact that you look at peaches are in season. You look at a peach and you realize that for a single peach to come into existence, it has to have a number of not only conditions, but also other entities, such as the soil, the earth, the minerals. You can go into even more detail, the water, the varying temperatures of the day and the night, all in a perfect sort of harmony and organization, that they all seem to be working, collaborating with each other. Yet they individually don't exhibit any sort of conscious will or conscious knowledge that may have governed and orchestrated all of this. But instead, they all individually point to the fact that they too are subject to the will and the order of something else. And that in this order, they are able to harmonize and orchestrate together in order to produce a single fruit. Similarly, in this lens, a way of looking at any life can be applied to anything. You can look at a single sort of ant. You can look at a single cell in your body. They all seem to be in a relationship, a dependent relationship, a collaborative relationship, but in and of themselves dependent for everything. Obviously, the biggest need being the need for them to exist. So their biggest dependence is the one of needing to exist. And so within this sort of grand orchestration, everything together comes to point to a single source of existence as within their behavior and the qualities that they seem to be manifesting. And this idea of obedience is something that is represented by the fact that nothing is acting out of its own will. Nothing is being sustained on its own. Everything is utterly subservient and in need, and within their act, they are asking through their tongues of disposition. A tree, the way that it stands, the earth, the way that it's spinning around its orbit, around the sun, all in their action exhibit this fact that they are not acting on their own, but instead are functioning in an order that must be, in this perfect order that must have a source that has knowledge, not just only of that single particle, but for everything that exists, for things to continue to be in a, to have a constant, sustained, perfect order. And moving on to the next point, the glorious monarch of pre-eternity and post-eternity, who is self-sufficient and utterly without need. He is rich without limit and in no way need of the universe and its beings. And this is perhaps like, a statement that I like thinking more about. And I will also pose this as a question as to why you think that it was relevant here to, state this fact about the Creator himself, that he is self-sufficient and without need and rich without limit and in no need. What does that have to do with my understanding? I understand, okay, I am in need, but what is the significance here for you in understanding this subject about mentioning why, about this sort of particular statement of about the author? And okay, so, and I'll expound on this, but I would love to hear competing or complementing thoughts on this. So when I think about, okay, there's this entity that is being described, and I'm looking at this from a perspective of just like, let's say someone just comes across this text. And I read this saying, okay, if there's an entity that is being claimed to be self-sufficient and without need. And I think to myself, okay, what I observe in me, around me, is that anything that is existent in creation, as far as I can observe and study in the universe, on the earth, does not fit this description. Everything is described, has an identity of being in need. So I can say, okay, there's nothing in this universe that will be or can be at all like something that has no need. And further, I say, as someone in need, for meaning, for sustenance, physical, existential, so forth. Because of my need, I'm in a constant position to ask for it to be fulfilled. It's the most basic realization. A toddler needs food. He has to ask his mother or someone who can give him that. As an individual, I think it's sometimes sort of at least lost upon me that even as we walk on this earth, we do need the order in which we exist to be commanded such that we don't lose our balance. But yet, I think it is something definitely taken for granted. And one can very easily say, okay, I've been created with these needs, and the one who created me must fulfill them. Why do I need to ask for the most basic things like a breath of air, or balance when I walk, or even as simple as I blink my eye and I technically, according to what we are discussing, need to even ask for my eye to move. I decide using my free will that I want my eyelids to shut and open. Why do I need to ask for something so, what seems so, simple and arbitrary? So that's a question one can easily sort of pose. And so in thinking about that question, I come to the conclusion that it is not necessarily the fact that I am, going through this petition process for, something as simple as my balance to be there as I take a step, but rather asking in the form of acknowledgement. An acknowledgement being as simple as, and it doesn't always mean I need, I want this, so give it to me, but rather an acknowledgement that I need to appreciate this. And hence I use the right sort of mode of communication to acknowledge it. For the example of, walking and asking for balance, is that as we walk on the earth, we realize that we are in need of, a feeling of being balanced, of standing, upright, in our life. And this acknowledgement of the fact that I am not the source of the order in which I am, given the ability to stand straight or walk in with balance, that this has been given to me. And then I must, in whatever situation I am, either appreciate it or thank it or acknowledge it with any sort of reply to this fulfillment. That is the point of, or that is the point that helps me connect with the most, basic rudimentary sort of aspects of our life. When we think about our need, at least when I think about my need, I'm thinking about very sort of grand, big, concepts. But as I said, like from the minute particle to the size of the sun, it requires, or it is incumbent on us to interact with this experience in the same way, from our biggest so-called need, let's say in our case that of meaning, which is in a way manifested in everything, from our seemingly small need, also has behind it our biggest existential needs, and so forth. So the point of that I felt in this point being made about that he is rich without limit and in no need of the universe, suggested to me that if this entity is like no other I've experienced or encountered in creation, then my relationship with it should also be of nothing and no other that I have in this world. This relationship is unlike any other. And this relationship also um, sort of helps me understand you know, my terms of existence in the way that I'm a constant seeker of help and constant as far as my life is concerned. As long as I'm alive, or as far as I have been alive, I felt that it's been constant. And on the other hand, there is this entity that is constantly in a position of giving, in a position of fulfilling. And I will obviously rather only go to, the simple example again, like you have 10 things to buy, very different, 10 different things. What seems easier, going to one supermarket where you can find all of those 10 things in one place, or going to 10 different stores for it? And so this is how I see my relationship being defined with my source of existence, where all that I do need is satisfied from a single source that is absolute in its power and its knowledge, and obviously its ability to satisfy what I need. And hence, this acknowledgement and this constant, I guess, and there's a point I think that's made in the couple lines down, is this idea that it raises you to the presence of the one who lacks all need. And again, my first question was around what do you think is the significance of presenting or mentioning the creator or this entity as mentioning it as like, okay, it is with no need, and it's self-sufficient, and so forth. And the next question that I will pose to you is this concept of being raised to the presence, and how you understand this idea. And I will obviously give my own thoughts to it. But so, I really like the way that in these writings by this author, things are very methodical. And from the first 6 mysteries and how they developed the point to this particular paragraph that defined man's identity, from looking at no other angle but from his own understanding of himself, to slowly building this sort of situation in which you are now connected with the source of your existence through your needs and no other way. I'm open to hearing a comment from anybody about this, but I haven't found any other way to connect let's say there are times when we are sort of very busy in our worldly life, general life. And in those times, I find no other way to access the source of my existence other than connecting and reminding and observing and studying my needs. If there is any other way, I am open to wanting to hear from anybody. So as this relationship, let's say, develop, or there's this, again, an opportunity for one to acknowledge. And I feel that the more one can develop this ability, train oneself in this and we are in the school of the universe because, as I said, as simple as, saying something, uttering a word to blinking an eye, something so, that something that we look over so easily in our life, the more one can recognize and be aware of these situations as moments of or opportunities for you to consciously employ these moments in your experience as saying that, oh, this is an opportunity for me to respond to what I have been given. The more one can be, thorough and, sort of the detail in these actions, and connect every experience as one being given from an eternal source of existence, the more one gets an opportunity to raise themselves. Raise in this context, I understood as this ability to free oneself from the despair and the agony of having attached cause to things themselves. And the more you are aware of these opportunities of acknowledgement, the more you are freeing yourself from the despair of attaching cause, and you are then allowed or invited, I would say, into invited into the presence or in the awareness, or being in the awareness, or being in a state of conscious awareness of the source of the source of our existence, and the source of existence of this entire universe, from the largest star to a single atom. And this relationship is only built on this contrast, or this awareness of this contrast of your position in relation to the position of the creator of this universe. And we've concluded that this relationship is like no other I have in this world. It is not, I am not, like a glass of water, and I'm interacting with a glass of water in a way that, my relationship between me and another, let's say even a human being, is one that is mutually dependent. We're both in need. We're both sort of, helping each other out in the sense. But my relationship with my source of existence is not like this. It cannot be like this, because it is, this source of existence must not be of the nature of this universe. And this contrast, or this sort of acceptance of my reality and my identity in relation to the definition of the source of being, is the basis in which we have to, we develop our relationship. And I understood this idea of, this levels of relationship of friend, addressee, and servant. Even in our own relationships in our life, we notice this, that the more we get to know someone, the stronger our relationship with them is. Your friend, an acquaintance to you, is someone you you barely know them, or you know them through a very specific context. Let's say just that of being co-workers, for example. And your relationship with them is limited. But as you get to know somebody more and who they are and their qualities and their attitude and their reactions and opinions and ideas, etc., etc. And the more you are in agreement with it and you find it that those sort of qualities in that individual help you towards your goal, the more you associate them as perhaps your friend or someone you trust, and so forth. And moving into someone you trust to a great extent, to someone you identify as someone you love. And similarly, I see these sort of levels of relationship coming in to play with in this relationship with our source of existence. And the biggest reason I have to suggest that is that this source of being must be conscious. So how is it that I can have these strong bonds of relationship with other conscious human beings? Should suggest that these bonds should translate again to a level that is not of this nature, of this universe, to this source of existence too. And so the more I am aware means the more I know, the more I notice the manifestation of the qualities of this being in my life around me, the more I am aware of it, and the more I'm acknowledging it, that I'm responding to it, I'm saying, yes, I notice that, when I, pull in or decide to, let's say, pull in my, chest, I inhale air. I acknowledge that this is not, this wasn't in my control, not, the fact that air seems to go in and supply oxygen to the rest of my body. And the more I am in acknowledgement that this is this is just a fulfillment of my will, the more I have the opportunity to uncover the qualities manifested in these actions, and the more detailed and the more responsible, I'd say, and the more, responsible, I guess, is the best word I can come up with, I can be of these experiences, the more opportunity I get to know the source of being, raise myself above the attachment to causes within this universe, and get closer to or be in the presence of this being. And I think there's a point that this author also makes about this idea of being, this idea of being in the presence of one's creator, also gives me the idea or this concept that, the more I raise myself, the more I get closer to this being, it should, and I'll give you perhaps an example, make me fear less, not being, be further away from concepts of despair. And when one is, let's say, overcome, beyond their fear, or let's say overcomes their fear, then the things that they are in front of them, they start to see them as serving them, and the idea being that the more one is raising themselves through the levels of consciousness, the more one discovers that whether it was even pain or sorrow that was inflicted to an individual or to us in our lives, that on the surface or in our experience seem sad and hurtful, you should begin to see them, these experiences or these things, these created beings, as serving you, serving your need of knowing your source of existence. And your fear is transformed into peace, in the sense that you are given a very simple, a very instantaneous opportunity to get to know your creator. Like if you think about it, in any given moment, you have access to get to know your creator without moving a single limb, without taking a single step, without any transaction, any condition. It is so easy, or it has been made so easy, and that I understand as being a facet of divine mercy, that it is made easy for you or for you to access meaning in any given moment, provided that you define your existence and view the world through your needs, and help your needs lead you to the one that can satisfy them. Moving further is the concept that we discussed perhaps in the last few week or two, but just as you cannot reach the sun and are far from it, although it fills your mirror with its light, reflection, and manifestation, you can in no way draw near to it. In the same way, you are infinitely distant from the most pure and the Holy One. So as I begin to discuss this, just a reminder that feel free. I know up till now it's been most of a revision, but with hopefully, I hope that the discussion so far has been helpful in the fact that it helps combine them in a methodical fashion and see how how the argument has been building up made by this author around the statement of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And it should, the litmus test here is that, one, obviously, it should be something that we use as the statement, the meaning contained within the statement. We test this and apply this in our life in moments of being overwhelmed and tortured, I would say, by our conditions. And if this statement and the meanings as expounded by the author and how we've discussed them together don't help us do that, then we have the right to question the validity of these statements. But as far as I've experienced through these discussions, especially on this statement, I have found that it is a very helpful and a very powerful reminder, though it does require me to unlearn many of the things and encourage myself to not take any shortcut. But of course, it serves as a good reminder and a tool that I have found to be very reliable in any given condition. But this statement so far that we're going to discuss now about, again, a statement that helps us very clearly lay out the nature or the terms of this relationship between us and the source of being, is that, and it's very, very easy, easily conveyed in this example. But as we discussed in the last couple of weeks, that there's the statement that we discussed, that there's nothing like unto him. The fact that while we may be a reflection or a, entities that definitely are dependent on an infinite source, while we are from this infinite source, we in no way represent this infinite source in it, we are forever finite, and that source is forever infinite, and nothing can be like the infinite except the infinite itself. And I don't have a separate entity other than that which I am given. So whatever that I do have is given to me, and so there is no part of my identity that I can lay claim to. And as I said, because the nature of this entity is nothing like of this universe, then my relationship to it cannot be like anything that I have with other beings of mutual dependence and interaction. And my interaction with this being has to be unlike that of my interactions with other beings, in the fact that I am a witness not to its essence, but to its qualities that are manifested. So through the qualities, I can draw nearer to this being, but I cannot draw nearer to this being by, let's say, experimentally trying to find the existence or trying to prove the essence of the existence of this being. But as I said, through developing this conscious relationship and interaction is my only way of drawing nearer or getting to know, nearer being another way of saying getting to know, getting to acknowledge this source of existence. And knowledge conveyed through the qualities in entities and in my experiences that allows me to draw near him is what I think is represented by the concept of divine mercy. So that is probably most of what I wanted to say on this paragraph. And again, please feel free to share your own thoughts and comments and perspectives on the main points we've discussed so far, primarily from my side, primarily pertaining to the significance of describing the creator as self-sufficient and without need, the concept of being raised, and the idea, the concept of how we should view our relationship with this being, that of seeing what is illuminated with his light, rather than get to be in search of his essence. Okay, so I'll wait for, I'll just see if there are any hands go up. And if not, then I think we can also move to the second paragraph, or the paragraph after, which inshallah will introduce a new point, a very important one, that is perhaps the crux of the sixth mystery, inshallah. Okay, If the host, gives his consent, then we can go into the next paragraph. Okay, inshallah. O man, anyone who finds this mercy finds an eternally unfailing treasury of light. And the way to find it is by following the practices of the most noble messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, who was the most brilliant exemplar and representative of mercy, its most eloquent tongue and herald, and was described in the Quran as a mercy to all the worlds. I think we can discuss this paragraph, fairly, and then move to the next one. I think maybe I'll read the next one also, and then together, inshallah. The way to attain to this embodiment of mercy, who is a mercy to all the worlds, is to utter the prayer calling down God's blessings upon him. Indeed, the meaning of this prayer is mercy. As a prayer of mercy for that living embodiment of divine mercy, it is a means of reaching the mercy to all the worlds. So make this prayer the means to the mercy to all the worlds for yourself, and at the same time make him the means of reaching the mercy of the most merciful one. So in this paragraph, we are, introduced, I guess, in as so far as our discussions have concerned, to the concept of prophethood, in particular the prophethood of the messenger bearing the message of the Quran, but in general, we refer to this as anyone employed by the creator of the universe to convey his message. There's an example that I learned from these discussions, and I find it a very, very convincing example, very powerful, and something that I think fits well into the journey that we've had thus far, insofar as that, we concluded around our nature of who we are. We concluded to what we needed, what we want, for our existence to convey a beautiful, convincing, eternal meaning. We went on to sort of establish who it must be that may satisfy or should satisfy this meaning, and how is it that we get to know it, and how is it that we are continuously satisfied and are raised or moved through the levels of peace and satisfaction and strength and confidence and certainty in our journey in this life. So now we get to a point to saying, okay, I've concluded all this so far, but how can I make sure that I can get to know or raise myself through these levels of certainty? How can I be sure that my method or way of doing this is the best one? And there's an example that I really love, is the one of the laptop. So you buy a laptop from the store, and you can open it, turn it on, go through the functions, press buttons here and there, discover based on your own curiosities and ability, and you can ask people around you about how they use it, etc., etc. But there's still a chance that you may not be accessing or making the most of all the features that were that this laptop was built with. So how can you be 110% sure of that you have made the most, or you've used this laptop to the best of the ability with which it was created for? For that, you need to refer to the manual. A manual that lays out in complete comprehensiveness what this machine contains and how you can make sure use it. And so, having gone through the manual, you can be 100% sure that there's no other feature that I have not sort of read about or learned about. And this manual, is scripture, this laptop being the universe, and you being the user of it, wanting to make sure that your way of getting to know, to getting certainty, to getting what you want, that you have absolute confidence and certainty that this is the best way, can only be done through the speech as revealed by the Creator through his messengers, and using or learning from the example of the prophets on how they approached this very question of satisfying one's human's needs, and referring to them, and as the author will say, praying, using this prayer to calling down on God's blessing through the learning through the examples of the prophets, is the intercessor. The prophets' role or teachings become an intercessor to us or for us. So when it's described in the Quran as mercy to all the worlds, it's, again, if you take this, the discussions we've had thus far around taking divine mercy as intercessor, and mercy in here being defined as the role and the teachings and the approach taught to mankind through the prophets, is indeed, their teachings indeed are a mercy to any human being wanting to secure their approach, their understanding, and their existence in any condition. I understand from the worlds as being sort of, any condition of existence that we find ourselves to be in. And we are taught by, so this concept of prayer, I'm going to take up. The way to attain this embodiment of mercy, who is a mercy to all the worlds, is to utter the prayer calling down God's blessings upon him. So we also notice this in our lives as believers, that every time we utter the words, let's say even Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, or we acknowledge the source of our existence as being a single merciful source of being, source of existence, almost always, if not without doubt always, the next thing we do acknowledge is or we ask for is for blessings and prayers to be sent to the messenger who came with this message. And so why is it that always this is followed on, our prayer or our acknowledgement of our source of existence is always followed on by calling for prayers and blessings upon the messenger of this existence, of the speech of God. And this is again a question I'll pose to the general group. why is it that they're always together and so interlinked? Maybe I would even say almost in and of the same, in their significance and what these two statements prove. What is that concept of acknowledging the prophet and the teachings of the prophet as mercy have to do with the great length of discussions we have had so far around the phrase itself, or of the merciful being, the intercessor also? How do these two concepts interlink in the fact that they're both called upon as intercessors? The mercy of the Eternal One and the prophethood or the teachings of the prophet themselves as being intercessors or mercy. Okay, Hamid, please, host, please go ahead.
So thank you. I wanted to change the voice so that the participants, our friends, will feel comfortable to speak and to express themselves and their concerns, their questions, their comments, whatever they have. Of course, I would like to ask a very practical question. Why do we need to pray to ask God's blessings upon the messenger? I mean, I can benefit from it. Does he need the blessings? I mean, let's make it interactive, short interactive between you and me, so the other friends will feel encouraged to express themselves as well. I can benefit from it. I think I couldn't put my question clearly. I can benefit from the messenger's message, but I practice it. But why do I need to ask for blessings of God on the messenger? Any answer? And any thought about it? Oh, okay.
Afsha, your hand is up. You can go ahead.
I think if you benefit from the teachings, it's just a natural response to acknowledge the person who made it available to you. It would feel selfish to just take and not even acknowledge. That's it.
What do I gain from it then, from acknowledging it? Yeah, I acknowledge that the teacher or the trainer was very successful. I acknowledge it. By acknowledging it, what am I doing really? I feel that asking for blessings, peace of God on the messenger, as far as I am concerned, I am confirming within myself the importance of the messenger's position. It means, practically speaking, when I ask for blessings, peace and blessings, prayer, to the messenger, to the teacher, to the trainer. When I ask blessings, I am confirming within myself that I am happy with his teaching, with his exemplary practice. I am happy with it. I acknowledge it and I support it. So the most important part of these blessings, asking for blessings of God on the messenger, is going on from my side. It means I am recognizing his help for me and I am supporting his teachings by expressing that I am very happy with it. I am happy with the teachings that I received through the messenger. And the messenger demonstrated this message in his practical life so that I will also demonstrate the content of the message in my practical life. Does it make sense?
It makes sense.
Jabin has a comment, so go ahead, Jabin.
So Dr. Ali, you were just saying that when the reason why when we pray, we also, I guess, like send blessings upon the prophet or acknowledge his teachings. We're doing that because we're confirming it within ourselves and we're acknowledging it, we're supporting it. But my question is then, so then what about, you know, let's say if someone is a physics student, they're not always going to acknowledge what their physics teacher taught them. Like, I guess like this is something I myself have also been trying to understand, and I guess I'm not understanding, like, is that enough? Like, is that the only reason why I am acknowledging those teachings because I support them? I don't know, it just doesn't feel like it's enough reason for me. Like, I understand it, but I also think there's more to this that I myself, I guess, need to understand. And would you be able to help with that, please?
I think the moderator should address to this question.
Inshallah. So if I understood your question, well, and please correct me if I didn't, is that you're wondering whether it is enough for this individual to have to be able to satisfy all that you need. Is that fair to say?
I guess since we were saying that, why is it necessary for us to, in easy words, send blessings upon the prophet to as we seek God's mercy, and that's we're confirming that within ourselves, we're acknowledging it, we're happy with it, but for some odd reason I think that for me that's it's not enough reasoning. Like, am I really just doing it because I'm happy with his teachings and I support it?
Right. That's a very fair comment and question. The way that I'll think about approaching this is that, you know, I really find it beneficial to, when answering sort of any question that I have, from starting from where I am right now. And as an individual, as a human being, you know, and where I am right now means like, you know, where I am in terms of defining my existence, and that is of, you know, need of guidance, of making sure, you know, when I do something, I may not be sure whether this is right or I could have done it better. Even when we think about it, thinking about school as it, or our experiences with our teacher, you know, let's say I'm learn a language, I can take a book, start trying to learn a language. But if I want to make sure that I've done as the best as I can, or covered all the topics as much as one can, then I do in that moment feel the need that I need someone who knows this, who's done this, who's studied it, who knows the struggles. Let's say, you know, from our teachers, they have been teachers, they have been students themselves, and have gone through the questions and the confusions, just as a student does during that time. And not only, and so they have the experience that relates to me. And so it becomes then someone that I trust. The second aspect, I think, to this question is that even for this, you know, teacher or a prophet, we have to take their message that they come with and apply it within our life and see whether or not it works for me or not. And only on the basis of that will I say that you know, my prayer seeks to confirm their role. So what we've also discussed so far in this statement of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, I also see it as obviously being conveyed by a prophet. We take this statement, apply it in our life in the way that we've discussed it, and see if it works or not for me in my situation. And if I do see evidence for it to work, then I say, yes, that this messenger was delivering the message directly from the source of existence, and that I can begin to now trust or learn from the teachings that they bring me. Because one point that serves from this is like, if I stand in need of an explanation on how to approach my life to the best of my ability, then that information or guidance needs to come from the source itself. And the source only employs messengers. The messengers don't add anything of their own sort of you know, volition to it. They're only conveying the message. And so viewing this messenger as the deliverer of the message, and viewing them with this sort of relationship, in order to confirm that this is what I needed and this is what is being fulfilled. I hope it was a little bit helpful, but I will let anybody else also answer. And Dr. Ali, you can go ahead.
I think it depends on what we understand from prayer. For example, is a general concept of prayer is the attitude, the verbal expressions, utterances of the need of human beings presented to the Creator. When I pray, I'm not trying to convince the Creator to provide what I need for me, to provide for me what I need. I'm not trying to convince the Creator. I am just expressing myself. So when I pray for the messenger, I am just expressing my concern, asking God, by asking God to bless his spirit, to make his spirit in peace. It means I'm expressing myself. Of course, the Creator knows what he deserves to be. The more I express myself, or as the following paragraph says here, the whole community which expresses their feelings to the Creator, so that they are to express that they are pleased with the teachings that they received through the messenger, in this case the messenger Muhammad. When we say peace and blessings be upon him, it means we really are happy with his teaching, and we want also to increase his teachings among the people, so that the more people should receive this teaching, so that they will be happy with their life, in their relationship with their Creator, so they will secure their existence, their needs, by referring them to the Creator. You, Creator, provide everything for us, and we learned this from the teachings of the messenger, that he conveyed the message of the Creator to us. So we are happy with it. The prayer is a kind of support from my side that this idea, this teaching was useful, and I am going to practice it. I am going to make it also published or spread to the others. It is a solemn determination from myself when I say, oh, I am pleased with the teachings of the messenger. That is the only way to express my feeling, peace and blessings be upon him. This is the phrase taught by the Quran. When I say, I must mean that I am very happy with his teaching, I support his teaching, I put his teaching into practice in my life. That is a firm determination from myself. Of course, we human beings need to express our feelings through language as well, because we are given the ability to speak. So that is my answer. Rather than urging God, convincing God that he must bless his spirit. No. God, the Creator must know everything, otherwise he cannot be the Creator. But my expression of it satisfies my need, but I have to express it. I have to put into words, so that I will convince myself even more that I have to follow the teachings of the messenger. I think the time is up, but let's finish this concluding remarks as well, so that next Saturday we can start from a new subject, inshallah.
Inshallah. To conclude, just as the most precious jewel in the treasury of mercy is the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, its doorkeeper, so is its first key in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, and its most easy key, the prayer for the Prophet. O God, through the truth of, in the name of God, the merciful and compassionate, grant blessings and peace to the one whom you sent as a mercy to all the worlds, as befits your mercy and veneration of him, and to all his family and companions, and grant us mercy so as to make us free of want for the mercy of any other than you from among your creatures. Amen. Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing, all-wise. Considering the time, I'm wondering whether we should open this prayer a little bit up and talk about it, or what do you think, Dr. Ali? You're muted, sorry.
So, sorry, you referred to me. I understand that the last paragraph you read equates the asking peace and blessings be upon the Prophet, messenger, and also using Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Because when I say in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, when I say in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, I definitely express myself that I am very happy for the mission of the Prophet who taught me this. Because we learned this relationship between me and my Creator through his divine mercy, that he is treating me in this world. Of course, this teaching we obtained from the messenger of God, who presented this message to me, so I accepted it. Anytime I say, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, by the way, it is a way of expressing my happiness with the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. So when I express my happiness with the teachings of the Prophet, it means I am supporting his teaching, and I am asking for peace and blessings upon him, so that his teaching will be ever present in my life again. That is how I communicate through my life when I say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in any case that I remember what the blessings, the mercy of the Creator is reaching me, coming to me, and I am benefiting from it. I know the time is not enough and the moderator cannot really go into details, but I just wanted to see the parallel between asking for peace and blessings upon the Prophet, also and also using the expressions, and also becoming aware of the meaning of this expression, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, are parallel to each other.
Thank you. So just very briefly, the prayer is a confirmation and expression that the message brought to us through the Prophet in the phrase Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is something that satisfies me, that I am fulfilled by it, and the prayer, helps us remind us and stay in touch and connected with the blessings and the things that are, opened up for us in our thinking whenever we recite it. So at this time, inshallah, we'll say the closing prayer and conclude. I can say the prayer if That's okay. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Wa akhiru da'wahum anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Al-Fatiha. Jazakallah khair, everybody.
Thank you, Jazakumullah, for everyone who joined us here. And inshallah, we will meet next Monday and next Saturday. Next Saturday, we will start a new subject, inshallah, the second world. Thank you. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.